Hey everybody, Mark Stedman with a little explainer video here for some new features that we've just put into port for you. So for fiscal 20, there's an emphasis on tracking goals in port. So we've built out some ways to do that and then some dashboards to see the results. So I want to go over that this morning, help you understand how it works, and then also to solicit your feedback and thoughts on these. So, if you are a regional director, you have already, of course, submitted your goals for the year and for the month. And I've taken the time to load that into port on your behalf just to make that easier for you. What is loaded in place currently is scripture starts and completions. We have not yet finished building out the stuff for the partner projects, otherwise known as the multiplier project. So look for that coming up very soon here in the next couple of weeks. So right now the goals are able to track scripture starts and also scripture completions. So first thing I want to show you is this dashboard called Regional Goals. It is visible to you through the dashboards menu. So your dashboard is already defaulting to some other thing here. So this is a new one. So you can always come to your dashboard screen, drop down the list here, and then select regional goals. And it will show you the goals that pertain to your region. In this case, I am using a demo user that is looking at the Pacific region. So thanks, Joe Jervis, for being willing to let me show you your data and just to give you kind of an idea of what's going on here. So on the left-hand side, we've got this month's goals. So this is what's being worked on in December. Not helpful that it kind of trims off what the actual goal is here. All you can see is where it says December. The way to remind yourself of what's going on is you can just mouse over the blue dot and it will show you the whole thing. So on the right is the scripture starts and the target is 10. It reminds you that it's an integer. I don't know why that is, but so the other one is completion. So in this case, the goal for scripture starts for the Pacific region is 10. At present, there are no actuals. That's why the blue here is not showing up because actuals is currently 0. It's early in the month. This little triangle is a moving target that throughout the month will rise. It starts at 0 on the first of the month and then just uses math to calculate kind of linear growth. And on the last day of the month, it will be the same as the blue circle, which is the target for the whole month. And then we've got this field called in progress. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about in progress in a few minutes and explain how we're calculating that. That's kind of a thing that we're testing. Don't know if it'll be useful, but wanted you to have access to it. Let's look at last month's goals because there's actually some data here. So last month, the goal for scripture starts for the Pacific was 20, and what was achieved was 17. So I'm just mousing over these, and you can see the little pop-ups here. Today's target doesn't appear because the month has passed, and in progress, there was a pretty good number here in progress. Then at the bottom, you've got kind of the annual progress. Same setup. So the blue circle says, okay, the total for the year, 400 for scripture starts. The triangle says, hey, based on, kind of linear progression throughout the year, it should be around 78. And at present, it's at 38. So got some catch up to do. And again, the in progress gives an indication of, well, there's lots of work in the queue that has not commenced yet. So that's a good and healthy sign. If you want to see detail on those, you can go to the goals screen. And the way that you get there is you're going to open up your menu. And under project manager, you've got this new section called goals. Like I mentioned, I have loaded all those for you based on what was submitted into the to the operations team. So you've got each of the monthly scripture starts here lined up, and then the New Testament. And at the bottom is the annual goals as well. Your order might be slightly different, but you can always order them by clicking on the column header that you are interested in. So if you want to look at what's coming up, in the Pacific, you've got October, November, December, and this would be your region. When you load it up, it'll pull up your data. In the case where there was a 0 for a month, I went ahead and created the goal and put a 0 in there anyway. So if you do need to update that, you can always just open up the goal, and then you can change the target to what you would like it to be. So right now the target is 0, but you can update that to something else. I think that CRM is unhappy because I like having a 0 there. So if you want to update that and you cannot, let me know, and we can get that straightened out. So that is where you would see all of your goals, the percentage achieved and whatnot will begin to fill in, of course, as we move through the year on the monthlies. The annuals get recalculated every night, so the actual counts up every night and gets updated as that moves through. Perhaps you're wondering, how are we calculating what is a scripture start and a completion and things like that? So I want to show you a new entity that also recently been added to Port. It's not an entity that you necessarily need to interact with directly, but I want you to know that it's there, and it's called language results. That's under project manager and language results under data. So what's going on there is, you know, we grapple with the fact that oftentimes a language will have multiple projects over time to work toward having a complete Bible. There may be a mix of written and oral or other things going on. So there's some fancy math going on in the background that takes all the projects for a language and figures out whether or not all portions of scripture have been represented in figuring out if there's a complete Bible. So what that means is it's actually possible for a group to make the decision, say, to have the New Testament as an oral project and the Old Testament as a written project. I don't know if this will ever happen, but the software is smart enough to look at that and say, we're concerned about the format, but what we see here is that all the books are complete in one way or another, therefore we would have a complete Bible. And it takes things like the new start date, that's calculated by looking at all of the workshops and picking the oldest one where scripture started and setting the new start date for that. The same for scripture start date. It looks at all of the workshops and decides whether or not the scripture was translated there, and takes the oldest one and sets those dates. So basically what this means is it simplifies reporting. It eliminates issues with languages being counted twice because they have two projects, and some other things that were a concern for those who were trying to look at results and really see how effective WA was being. So if you have questions about that, let me know. I'd be happy to walk you through more of the details on how that's calculated, but that's the language results. So all the goals are tracked against that language results entity, as opposed to being tracked against language records or projects or workshops directly. So that's kind of the gist of that. So back here on the annual goals, for instance, we've got lots in progress. Now, what's that number coming from? At present, what that number is coming from is projects that are in a planning status. So you'll recall from the last video I put out, we've got a couple of statuses that are possible for a project. Of course, we've got here, we've got discussing, approved, planning, prepping, and then in progress. And so discussing is just like it sounds, when a project is being discussed but hasn't been approved yet. It moves to approved after it's been vetted and we've decided that we have a good partner and that the work should get work done and hasn't already been done and things like that. That goes to approved. Planning status happens when an approved project gets attached to an event. So the difference between planning and prepping is that if the event is still in planning, in other words, if the dates aren't locked in and all the details haven't been finalized, the event is in planning, therefore the project is in planning. And then prepping means that the project is attached to an event and the event is basically all set up. There's not any more changes expected. The dates are set and things like that. So big hump here in planning, which is great. That means those things are all getting work done. I know that lots of effort goes into figuring out when events should happen and where they can happen and all those kinds of things. So the in progress indicator here on the goal basically says how many projects are in this planning status within the date range. So in other words, if you have projects that are in planning status for the year, if they happened in the year, like if they went to planning status during this year, then they're going to show up in this orange bar. If it happened during this month, then it's going to happen, you know, if it was last month, it's going to show up in the orange bar for last month and again for this month. So if it happened in December. And the field that it's looking for on that, let's just look at some planning projects here. This is also a new field that's calculated. So if we just take a project here that's in planning status. You see the status is planning, and we have this field called date last project status changed. That is calculated. So whenever this project status advances forward or backward, this date gets updated. So what that's looking at is, hey, you know, in October, this project went to planning status. So that means it's now going to get counted up in that orange bar. It gives you kind of an indicator as you are working toward helping the global church have scripture for itself. Hey, something good is happening here. This is moving closer and closer to actually coming to fruition. So we like to see lots of orange, and then those orange ones turn blue, of course, after scripture gets started. So just to kind of help you do that. I know that's maybe a little complicated. We're still trying to work with the ops team and figure out what's the best way to represent this stuff. But that is kind of a way of looking at the pipeline or the funnel of what's coming up. And I hope that that is helpful. So that is kind of my short explanation of how goals work. Please let me know if you have any questions. And as always, let me know if these are helpful videos. And we'll have another one out very soon that has to do with expense reconciliation. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.